welcome.
Thank you, Sylvia.
It's lovely to meet you. Um, Let me just say how I came across you. I was going through my LinkedIn as per usual, trying to keep on top of things. And it also seemed to be, stumbling across you also seemed to coincide with my sort of coaching practice, where I'd been coaching a couple of middle leaders who were asking for resources. They were Black women who were fairly early on in their careers. And your book came just at the right time. And I managed to refer them to that. And I was so thankful that
Wow.
that I could do that. It's funny how those things happen.
Yeah.
It really is, honestly. So, but anyway, welcome to Social Workers Matter. And this podcast is really having conversation. It's about having conversations with people who are doing great things, but also to hear about their careers and their journeys. So Claudia, you know, we've not met each other previously, but we've had a lot of sort of email contact and so on. But
Yeah.
I want to hear from you. Who is Claudia?
Ooh,
it's a big
that's
one.
an interesting question, isn't it?
It is.
Who is Claudia? Well, I suppose I'll start with what I do, I think. I mean,
Yeah.
that doesn't really define me, but it's certainly an important part of my life. I'm the founder and the, what do you call it? The coach, the executive coach and the career coach in Winning Pathways Coaching. And it's the business that specializes in coaching women, mainly women from social work professions. So it could be local authority or maybe somewhere like the NSPCC or, you know, one of those social work charities. So I focus on that particular group because my background is social work.
Okay.
And I started off in probation, and then I moved into the family court welfare element of probation. And then in 2001, they moved that bit out of probation into a new organization called CAFCAS.
Yes.
So I was in there, and then in 2010, I was managing the knowledge learning and professional development department. And you know, when they want to save money, training is always the first thing to get cut.
Yes.
So I lost my job, got made redundant. But fortunately for me, I knew about training and what could happen to it. I'd prepared myself, and I'd got trained to be a coach, and I was training some of the managers within that organisation. So that when I got made redundant, I set up the business Winning Pathway Coaching, and I decided to focus on women for two reasons. One is that I'd always worked in a female-dominated profession.
As social work.
So and I knew and understood women very well. And that might sound a bit weird because, you know, obviously I'm a woman myself. But it's only when you're working in like 5 days a week over many, many years, you're working amongst mainly women, that you really appreciate the strengths that they bring and the pains that they experience. And of course, they're all very similar to mine. So that's the first reason. The second reason is that I'm a feminist. I have been for a long time. And I'm all about bringing in gender and race equality.
Sure.
So, you know, what I do is all part of that, because my mission is to change the world one woman at a time. And what that means when you unpack it is that if women can make a bigger contribution on this planet, we're going to balance out the male and female energy, because the male energy hasn't done us a great deal of favor up until now. You know, the world's in a bit of a state, really.
Just a bit.
And I think we need more female energy to balance that out. And the key word here is balance.
Sure.
No, I'm not talking about getting rid of male energy, because the two things go together. It's like the yin and the yang, but we don't have enough female energy, you know, being contributed into the world. So that's what my business is about, really.
That's beautiful. I like your, you know, how you've articulated your mission. I think that can really resonate with a lot of people.
The other thing I do, Sylvia, is I do quite a bit of anti-racist work. I've been involved in this for many, many years.
Right.
I gave it up. I say I gave it up. I didn't really give it up. Basically, I withdrew. I took a step back from the frontline work, training white people in anti-racism, because I just found it wasn't good for my mental health.
Yep.
And I took a step back, and I actually came back into it in a bigger way in 2020 after George Floyd,
Sure.
because that was a shock, not just to me, but to the whole world, really. And I just thought I need to get back out there and do my bit. But this time I was focusing very much on the people who wanted to be allies, not the people who were being forced to attend anti-racist training by their organisation. The people who want to be allies, they're bringing a totally different energy. They want to learn. So I started to lead the allies group in the Women's Equality Party in 2020.
Okay.
Yes, I'm a member of that party.
Oh, okay.
And got some really good results. So I'm back out there, but I'm focused much more on the allies work than anything else. So
okay. All right. Well, thanks for that, Claudia. As you were speaking, there are a couple of things I want to return to. First of all, I think when you shared the sort of the kind of personal impact of being engaged in anti-racist work, can you say a bit more about that? Because I do think that a lot of Black people are kind of saying, I'm really concerned about my own emotional well-being, so I need to be careful about how much I immerse myself into this kind of work. So tell us a bit about your journey and your thinking as far as that's concerned.
Okay. Well, what we used to do, and this was in the 90s mainly, I'd work alongside a white person. So there'd be two of us running these courses within organizations. And it was very, it was, so we played an equal part in running these courses. But what I found with that, because the courses were for white people, what I found was that because they were told they had to attend,
sure,
rather than volunteering, most of them were reluctant. They didn't want to be there, and they didn't like the message.
Yeah.
So what they did, they invariably turned on the black bit of the pairing. And I know that for a fact, because this is the feedback I got from all the other people who were running
involved in that
there,
work.
There was like a group of us who divvied up the courses now.
Sure.
So they'd turn on the black person, we'd get gaslighted, we'd get attacked. There was so much racism thrown at us.
Wow.
You can only take so much of it. Now, the white person we worked with, most of them were pretty good at supporting, but some of them felt helpless. So it was a bit, you kind of got to know the people who you could work well with and get supported by. But, after a while, I just thought, it's not worth, the money was good, by the way. I was getting paid really well for doing these courses, but I just thought, this isn't worth the money.
No.
It's taken its toll on my mental health. I find it hard to sleep at night. It was affecting my physical health because of that. It wasn't worth it. And that's why I walked away.
I mean, thank you so much for being so generous in sharing this, because, for many of us who are kind of engaged in that sort of work, we resonate with the weariness of it, but we don't often talk about the detail of that. So I think what you're sharing there is something that everybody really needs to hear. And I'm about to engage in some work of a similar nature, and I will be working alongside a white colleague. And I think the 90s I recall vividly, and I recall some brutal experiences as far as that training is concerned. But do you think we have moved on? You've said that you want to, you're re-engaging with it. What's the difference for you now, and what is your strategy for survival now?
I think there is a difference. what hasn't changed is the racism itself.
Sure.
It's not changed at all. The stuff that was being said back then is still being said now. And that's quite shocking, really, when you think about all the work that we put in on this topic in the 80s and the 90s.
Yeah, here we are again.
Yeah, yeah. What has changed is language. There's been some new concepts, things like unconscious bias, that didn't exist in the old days.
Yeah.
I'm not saying unconscious bias didn't exist, but the concept didn't exist.
Yes.
At least I never heard anyone talking about it. We now know about the label white privilege. Now that did exist, except it wasn't called white privilege, because I used to work with a video called Being White. And it was all about that. It, made all that time ago. It was all about that, but it was never called white privilege. It was about being a white person, the privileges that you enjoyed, But white privilege, that's a relatively new label.
I'll have to get the reference from you for that video.
Being white. I've got that video actually on a video. What do they call it? The cartridge. And I'd like to get that
transferred onto
screen, so we can.
There may be a way to do that.
If I could find out.
Yeah. I'll also do a little research and see if I can
that'd be
find.
Great. Yeah. So they say the language has changed, and I think another big change is George Floyd.
Oh, sure.
That man, I mean, the way he had to die to bring this about, it just, when I think about it, I just get filled up, But I think for a lot of white people, they saw something that they just couldn't deny what was happening. And then they started to listen to the lived experience of Black people. Now, in the old days, it's not that we didn't talk about our lived experiences. We talked about it till the cows come home.
Absolutely.
Nobody could hear it, and very few would listen. When you think about, go back in history to, say, the New Cross fire.
Yes.
And how Black people were treated by the government and the press. I mean, it was there, staring you in the face, and yet very few people took on board what it meant and what was happening. So that's the big difference, I think. That there are people out there now who are prepared to listen and who are prepared to act and do something about it. But it's still a long, slow process, because we've been working on this all these years, and we've only just got to this point, and it took the death of a man on camera, the death of a Black man on camera, to bring us to this point. It's just shocking, really. It's outrageous.
Yeah, it's a scandal, really. And I think, like you, I mean, I grew up, and sort of became a social worker during the 80s, and I vividly recall some of these debates, discussions, the sharing, and then the deafness, and then as Black people, you stop sharing. But let me return to a question, Claudia. How do you aim to survive? What's changed about you, do you think, this time around, if I might put it like that?
I think I'm much more careful about who I hang out with. I've got a massive network. I know a lot of people, but I don't see them all as friends. And there are people I've known for many, many years who I was at school with, and I'm still in touch with some of them. And I'm still calling them friends. And then someone said to me, that's not a friend, that's someone you've known for a long time. And that, it kind of made me separate out who, I knew I could rely on, and who was going to support me, who were the real friends.
Sure.
But I don't often get rid of people from my network. I just keep them in it, because you never know, one day I might be able to help them and they might be able to help me, because
Absolutely.
I'm a generous human being, and just because someone isn't supporting me, it doesn't mean that I'm going to cut them off completely. The people who I get rid of from my network are the ones who don't want to learn, they don't want to know, and they don't want to grow, and they hang on to these stupid conspiracy theories that are around, and they spout them with anger and vitriol and all of that. Those are the people I will get rid of from my network. So I'm supported by some really good people. I know exactly where to go, and for what, for me, it's a mutual thing,
Okay.
So there's that. There's also I meditate.
Okay.
I don't do it every day now. I used to, but one of the stories about the book was that one of my something that happened during my daily meditation.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. That's how it
We'll
came to
come
you.
back to
Yeah.
that later.
Yeah.
But I do meditate. I'm part of a little meditation group, and we meet on a Friday at 7, and we do it a whole hour online, and that's really, really good. And I might do the odd 5 minutes meditation. I did one yesterday, for example, it just grounds me, really. It just
Center you.
sets me up, gives me positivity for the day. The other thing I do is I do a daily gratitude ritual.
Okay.
And I make a list of 10 things I'm really grateful for from the day before. And I do that every morning without fail. It doesn't matter whether I'm working or not, I have to do that, because what I found with that is it puts life in perspective.
Sure.
I've got a glass half full mindset. I don't think negatively very often. It's quite rare, actually. And I know how much I've got in my life, and I'm not rich by any stretch of the imagination, and I'm not famous, and I'm not really interested in any of those things. I'm not interested in celebrity culture.
Sure.
But what I have got, I've got family around me who care about me. I've got other people in my life who love me. I moved into this fabulous house. It's just a 3-bedroom detached house in the middle of a very white Leicestershire countryside.
Okay.
I moved here last year. I did it by myself. I've just got so much to be grateful for.
Wow.
So much. And then my book, it's taken off. The launch went well yesterday. I managed to get over 100 people turning up, not just from the UK, but from Australia, Canada, America. How could I not be grateful?
Well, yeah, what more could you ask for? That's fantastic. And thank you for sharing that too, because I also think that these, I'm going to call them tips for well-being are absolutely going to resonate with people. And I'm sure you have more, but
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Yeah, I know, time's against us. We'll probably have to do another interview, Claudia.
Okay.
The other thing, as you were speaking, that I've totally gone off with my questions, but you were speaking about your membership and involvement in the Equalities Party.
Yeah, the Women's Equality Party, yeah.
Okay, Women's
Equality Party.
Okay, yeah. Equality Party. And I know one of your contributors is
Mandy.
Yeah, she's the head of it or something. Is she?
Yeah, Mandy's the leader of the Women's Equality Party. Yeah.
Okay, but tell me about how you found that and why you became involved in it.
Yeah. Well, 1-word answer or 2-word answer. No, 3 words. I'm a feminist. I'm a feminist. I have been for a long time. Probably even from when I was a little girl, because I was brought up in a household where my father was the typical Jamaican man. He was the head of the household. Right. And also he's a churchgoer, staunch Christian, follows the Bible to the letter. So, for him, God's will is that men rule the household.
Yeah.
But what I saw when I was a kid was unfairness. You know, I've got a brother. He wasn't given the same level of responsibilities in the house as I was, because I was the middle child, but I was the oldest girl.
Okay.
And I just thought it was so unfair. And there were so many things, and you know, brought up in the church, things I saw in the church. Why weren't women allowed to be preachers? Why couldn't they do this? Why were we told off when we wore sleeveless dresses? It just, a lot of these stuff just didn't make any sense to me. So, you know, I think it was natural, because I was questioning in my head. It seems natural to me that I was going to develop into someone who was going to take a stand against gender inequality.
Sure.
And I became a feminist. And for me, feminism is about gender equality. It's not about women having a higher status than men. It's about us being equal, getting equal opportunities in this world and having an equal voice. And that's what I want. So as a feminist, when the party, I found it, I think I was just doing some research online and it popped up. I thought, whoa, I'm gonna have to join this. So I joined as what they called me a founder member, because I was one of the first. I didn't set it up, but I was one of the first people.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah. And so I've been in it. I think it's 2015 it started, if I've got this right.
Very young.
Yeah, I'm quite active in it, because active in the sense that I'm a member of the Race Equality Caucus.
Okay.
And we set that up for women of colour, people women who are experiencing racism.
Sure.
And it's I'm on its committee. So what we're doing as a Race Equality Caucus is we're influencing the policies of the Women's Equality Party, so that they ensure that there is a proper perspective from people of colour.
Okay.
In everything they do.
Wow.
And that they take, we brought a motion on getting an anti-racist policy at the last conference, and that's being developed and will be implemented. So, you know, we've actually got a lot of influence. People are listening to us.
Fantastic.
And it's well needed. It's well needed, because if we weren't there, it would be like business as usual.
Yeah.
And the feminist movement would not reflect the lived experience of Black and Asian, and, you know, in other minority ethnic people.
Yeah, absolutely right. Wow, that's great. Activist as well. Very good. Wow, where shall I go next? What I was okay, so this podcast is called Social Workers Matter. Let's take a slight left. What were the highlights of your career as a social worker? Because the other thing is, we do have people who listen to this podcast who are fairly new to the profession, and it's always good to hear from you know, people who've had significant experience. It's just good for them to hear about that. So
highlight.
Yeah, what are the highlights? What have you made of your career, if you like it?
One highlight that stands out for me is my movement into social work. Now, if you think that I started off in probation, and in those days we were trained, as we had the same qualifications.
Yes, my first placement was probation placement.
Yeah. So I didn't actually see myself as a social worker, but the social work ethic and way of doing things was definitely in there. I think the highlight was when I moved into family court welfare work.
Okay.
It felt to me as if I'd come home. I didn't feel that as a probation officer working with offenders that I'd been that effective, because of the way the system is set up. You know, like people going to prison, they come out and they go back into prison. And So, but I did feel that the team I was managing was having an effect in family court welfare. I was brought up with parents who split up when I was quite young.
Sure.
Yeah. And I know what it's like to go through a divorce, especially when it's acrimonious. And then to be taken to court and asked which parents you want to live with, because that's what they did in those days. And my father brought me up as a single parent, although my mother was in the background. That's a whole another story. But it felt that I was guided into family court welfare to probably resolve some of my own personal issues. But when I brought to it with a particular perspective, because I knew what it was like to be a child caught in the middle of warring parents. So I'd say that was definitely a highlight. Another highlight was when we moved into Kafka. It took us out of probation. Didn't feel as if we really belonged there, and it put us into an organisation that was definitely social work oriented rather than offender-based work oriented.
Did you feel that was a better place? You felt more at home there?
Well, it took a long time. I did feel more at home, but it took a long time for Kafka to work itself out. It was at the beginning, it was pretty unstable, and it was for many years afterwards. But I felt that the work we were doing was definitely worthwhile. And the people there, they shared my values. I'm not saying that probation didn't, but it was a whole different thing, really. So they shared my values, and they were people who wanted to make a difference in the lives of children. So it's very child focused.
Okay.
So yeah, I'd say those two particular things. There might have been others, but
I'm sure there were. But I mean, I'm catching you out off the hoof, really. But if you were going to share any messages for newbies, and I mean, I work with a lot of social work students, so I can imagine that this information would also be useful for them. What kind of advice would you give a new social worker?
Okay. I would say, first and foremost, get your support group. Get it together. Make it a strong one. The only person who can do that is you. You have to get people around you who are going to support you, because social work is a tough profession. It's not just tough in terms of the fact that you're working with vulnerable people. It's tough in terms of how the society regards it. Because the press is wrong. As soon as something goes wrong, who gets blamed? You have to look at Arthur Lebanjo Hughes and Star Hobson, and they're looking to blame the social workers, despite the fact that social workers don't work alone. They work in groups with other professions. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, and it's related to the support. Look after yourself. Practice self-care.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't work all the hours God send. If your health is not good, you're not going to be any good for any of the people you're working with. So you need to put into place structures that are going to enable you to look after yourself. Take the time out. Do what you need to do to restore your energy and replenish yourself. Any other advice? I think those are the two key things.
Okay. Yeah.
What I know about new social work is that they do have like a team of supporters around them. So
yes, the protected. Yeah.
So use them. You have to use them.
Good. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Well, thanks for that. I mean, honestly, Claudia, we there's so much we could continue to talk about as far as that's concerned, and some of the other topics you've raised, and I am serious. I think we need another session. But tell us. Let's jump forward. The book.
Okay, the book. Yes, the book is called Undeterred: the success equation of women of Black and Asian heritage. Now, I was motivated to write this book by what was going on with Meghan Markle, really. I mean, that all sounds a bit odd, because I'm not a monarchist at all. If we had a republic, I'd
inspiration comes from lots of different
places.
places.
It certainly does, doesn't it? It does. But the thing is, I could identify with Meghan Markle, and it took me a long time. In fact, it's only a couple of weeks ago that I really worked out why what was happening to her was affecting me so much, and why I was almost obsessed with it. And it's because Meghan, she married into a white family who accepted her on the outside, but on the inside there was something else going on. I've had the same experience, you know. I'm not with not in that marriage anymore, but I know what it's like to, you know, to be madly in love and to join a new family, and then you find that you're not really wanted. And it took me a long time to work that one out, but it's a painful thing.
Yes.
And I think that's why Meghan and what was happening to her really hooked me. And what I was noticing was all these nasty headlines, and go onto social media, and it's still there, it's still happening. You see these really nasty things people are saying about Meghan and Harry, but more about Meghan. Most of it, how could they be factual? I mean, where are they getting the information from? It's all made up.
Yeah.
And I think it comes from the fact that here are the Black women who joined the royal family. This is like the most revered institution in the UK. She is not supposed to be there. Black people are not supposed to be there. You know, get rid of her, get her out.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, I was witnessing that, and it just, then one morning I woke up and I was doing my meditation. It's like someone did a download. He said, you need to write a book about this. Not about Meghan, but about the women, other Black women like her, ordinary Black women, not the ones with the privilege and the wealth, who are going through this kind of stuff on a daily basis. And the book really is about the success of these women, the challenges they faced on the journey, how they've overcome the challenges, what they say about themselves as leaders. And it's about inspiring other women, but it's also about those women who I interviewed recognizing that they are of value and they're bringing something really important into the world. And the other thing about the book is that people need to know that we are not just the stereotypes. In fact, we're not, I say not just, we are not the stereotypes.
That's right.
We are not. They talk about the angry Black woman, you know. You just need to say something that's controversial and become an angry Black woman. You know, we're not those things that we're stereotyped as. We are making a contribution to this society and to the world. And we need to be acknowledged for that. We need to be seen for who we really are. And that's why I wrote the book, really.
Yeah, I mean, I purchased the book fairly quickly and read it fairly quickly, well, by my standards anyway. But what the way I did it, I like to have an hour in the morning for sort of self-development. So I read a chapter each day, and it was a great way to start the day, to be honest. An absolutely great way to start the day, hearing the stories of inspirational women, very relatable women as well.
That's the thing, isn't it? You can identify with at least one person in there, at least
absolutely.
one.
Well, I identified with a few, but so I thought, so you've interviewed, if you just give us a bit of a sense of how the book is structured, I'll leave that to you.
Yeah, well, what I found when I was interviewing and writing the book, and I stumbled on this by accident, to tell you the truth. I discovered that there was a winning formula for success that these women were using, and I called it the success equation. So I forgot to add that the book is very much about that. It's about those elements of the equation that are in these women's life in which they have used, and unconsciously, I must say, because none of them knew about this success equation. So they were doing it, it was there. So I start the book. The first chapter is about that. It's about why I wrote the book, and it's about the success equation, and it unpacks the success equation, looks at each of the elements of it. And then we go on to the interviews with the 10 women. And what I did, I wanted to do something completely different, right? So I kept it as an interview. I didn't write it as a story of each woman. So you've got the questions and you've got the answers. And actually, you know, when I say it like that, it sounds as if it could be quite boring, but it's not. I don't think it is.
Absolutely not.
It adds a different level of interest to the whole thing. It's different, in other words. And then at the very end, is just a summary, and it brings things together, and it looks at it scrutinizes, I should say, the success equation, and whether it's rigorous enough, whether it stands up, and comes to some conclusion about that. One thing to say about these women, they come from, they're either Black or they're Asian, but they're not from the same ethnic group. They're different. We've got Jamaicans in there, we've got Indians, we've got someone from Malawi, we've got, they're from
a global community.
Yes, African diaspora and Indian diaspora.
Yeah.
We've got a Muslim woman in there as well.
Yep.
And they're from different classes, different ages, different background, and they're all doing different things. So we've got Vanessa, the film documentary maker.
Yes.
We've got Sherry, the former director of children's services in the NSVCC. We've got Shada, the independent social worker. We've got Marsha, who set up and is running a fabulous development program for girls and young women. You know, they're all different. Of course, we've got Mandu, the political party leader. They're all different. And that's one of the reasons why you can, you'll find at least one person you can identify with. And the thing about being able to identify with at least one is that they'll provide you with a role model.
Yeah.
You know, you can pick out the one who really appeals to you, or more than one, as you say, Sylvia, and you look at how she views the success equation and what she's achieved as a result of it.
I mean,
sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say what I did was, and it's a bad habit of mine. I sort of, as I read through the book, I was underlining, ticking, and annotating, which obviously means I can't resell the book. But and and that's absolutely something that a reader can do to sort of pull out some of the nuggets of wisdom, or the pearls of wisdom, I should say, that emerges as you read the book. And you have your sort of this success equation as a framework. I attended your launch of the book last night, and I was getting, it was great, good time. I was getting a sense that you want to do more. You want to progress this further. You want to say something about that?
Yeah, I'm looking at actually. Because basically the equation is like a template I've put onto the experience of interviewing these women and writing a book, rather than something I researched. So I want to go into that in a bit more depth and carry out a survey. And I haven't quite worked out how I'm going to do that yet, but give myself time in the launch with
meditate.
Meditate, yeah. So there's that, a survey, and also I want to develop a program around it, around each element of the equation and how you develop them, and that could be part of my coaching. The process of what I offer women in coaching. Or it could be a training event. I haven't quite worked that out yet, but I'm going to develop it first and then think about how I run it. So there's those two things.
I mean, the other thing is, of course, once you sort of get into that arena, there is also potential for rolling it out as a program where others can perhaps also deliver it. But you know, obviously your intellectual property and so on. But you know, I think that's the potential of
yes, absolutely.
Nice.
I mean, the other thing I'm thinking is I'd really like to get the Page One Women brand out there.
It's the other thing. I had that down somewhere. Tell us about your Page One Women.
The Page One Women.
How on earth did you come up with that?
Well, when I started the business in 2010, it was still the days of the Page Three girls.
Oh God,
and of course, I absolutely hated the Page Three girls as a feminist. And when I started to, you know, really develop my brand and look at what my purpose was, and I knew it had to do with women. I just thought, and I started to come across these women who were just incredible. We never heard about them. They were like behind the scenes doing this amazing work, you know. And then I started to write about them, and I thought, I'm going to have to give these women a label. And I came up with the Page One Women because it's the exact opposite of the Page Three girls. You know, these are women. They are making an important contribution. They're not on the Page Three, bare-breasted, you know, looking really, I don't know, youthful and coy and whatever. These are women. These are real women. It doesn't matter what they look like. They are doing things which are really important and that need to be known about. And that's why Page One, they're worthy of front page status. That's
absolutely
where it came from. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
I'd love to get it out there. I'd love it to be recognized so that when we talk about Page One Women, we know exactly who we're talking about.
Yeah, that will definitely get out there. Claudia.
It's been going for nearly 12 years. So.
It is a good idea. It's a great idea. I think the other thing that I'm also hearing and is that you didn't have it all worked out in the beginning. What I love is how things have just emerged, and you know, you've obviously, because you're meditating, you've captured them and moved forward with them. I mean, I suppose I'm still being a bit greedy with your time, but as an entrepreneur, would you consider yourself to be that? You are a sort of an independent woman, if you like, in terms of your working situation. Any thoughts on that? Any advice on that? Anything you can share as far as
I don't see myself as an entrepreneur, actually.
Okay.
For me, an entrepreneur is someone who develops business after business. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's what they're about. They're about coming up with taking an idea, developing it into a business, running with it, and then selling it off to somebody else.
Yes.
So I just see myself as a businesswoman. I'm a sole trader.
Yes.
I run this business by myself. It's pretty successful. Last year was a brilliant year for me. This year is pretty good. But being a businesswoman running your own business, it's a lonely place.
Oh yes, tell me about it. Yeah,
you're on your own.
Oh yeah,
very much on your own.
Yeah,
you know, I sit in my office sometimes and I don't see a soul, you know, for days. And what I've learned now is that, again, go back to developing your network. So you've got people you can call up, and I have Zoom calls with people, you know, just to touch base, find out how they are. I'm pretty good at that. When I first started, and I was missing the camaraderie of life in Kafkas, I met a couple of women at some event, and the three of us hit it off. And I decided to set up what I call the water cooler moment. Yeah?
Yes. Okay.
So once a week on a Wednesday, we'd get together online and we'd just chat about nothing. And we'd do it for half an hour, and then we'd go back to work. And it just kind of reflected those times when you'd go into the coffee room at work, someone else would be in there making a coffee, and you'd say, "Oh, did you see that program on TV? Oh God, wasn't it awful? Wasn't it awful?" So, and those moments they keep you going in the working days, don't they?
Yeah, they do indeed.
They replenish you and re-energize you. When
Yeah,
you
yeah.
haven't got it, because you're working in your own business.
Well, what I suppose my next question really, as we move towards sort of finishing, is what do you think about this whole kind of remote working situation? You have obviously been doing it for a
A
while.
long time, yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think about all of that?
Well, it doesn't suit everyone, but
No.
I think actually, I think it's an opportunity for business to save money. Actually,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, they can cut their overhead just by allowing people to work from home, giving them that flexibility. You know, if they don't want to do it, then provide somewhere for them to work. But if they do want to do it, yeah, sure, go with it. Yeah, I think it's a great idea, especially when you've got kids.
Oh gosh,
You
yes.
know, and of course, it'll impact on women a lot more than it does on men. So
Mm.
I'm all for it. Flexible working, bring it on. Yeah.
Well, yes, and I mean, I have aging parents, so you know, again, being able to kind of fly up to wherever and have a check on them is also equally as useful. Okay, we diverted there slightly, Claudia, but thanks for sharing. Tell us more about where people can access the book, where people can access you. I know you're a busy coach, but you know, where can people access you?
The book is actually on Amazon. And you can either go direct there or you can go to my website. I've actually got a landing page for the book.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. So you can do that. If you want a signed copy, just email me at c.crawley@winningpathwayscoaching.com. And just let me know that you want a signed copy of the book and I'll get that out to you. It doesn't cost any more than if you get it from Amazon. The only thing you'd be paying for is postage, and that's just £2.
Okay.
So the price of the book is £12.99, and to get it signed, you just pay postage, which is £2 on top of that. Yeah.
Fantastic. I'll put all those details in the show notes so that.
But I'm going to continue marketing it for the rest of the month. So, you know, people can just look out on social media.
Yeah, you're on LinkedIn as well.
LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I'm on Twitter, but I don't use it so much. And I've also got a YouTube channel, which.
Yeah, I mean, it's always about the time and.
That's right.
To sort of service all of these things. But anyhow, I guess I also wanted to acknowledge that the launch of the book was fantastic last night. Well supported. You were able to speak to a few of the women that you interviewed, and we got to, well, it was great meeting them in real life.
Yeah, amazing women, aren't they?
Absolutely amazing. Oh my gosh. So you know, that was really great. Is there anything in closing, Claudia, you want to share with us? Any final thoughts? Any things that you've got in the pipeline that you want us to know about? You know, let me leave the final words to you.
Okay. Well, in the pipeline is just to get the book out there further, because there is definitely a message in there for women, regardless of your race and ethnicity.
Absolutely.
I know the book is focused on Black and Asian women, but the success equation is something that we should all find and we can all develop and apply. And I just think when you know what that success equation is, it'll enable you to use it intentionally, you know, and get the most you can out of what you're doing, and develop what you're doing in a much more effective way. So yeah, those are my closing thoughts. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, there's one more. Right?
One more.
I'm really greedy. Could you just share with us what the success equation is in terms of, you know, because you gave a full yesterday, and I thought I must ask her about that. Yeah, that will be your final word.
Yes, okay. My final word, the success equation for these Black and Asian women in my book is D plus R2 plus P. Now, what that means is D is for determination. The first R is for resilience. The second R is for resistance, and that's about taking a stand against race and gender inequality. And the P is for purpose. And the purpose, in my view, is the strongest. It's the one that's the real driver within that group. And as individuals, we might have others that we might want to add. I mean, a good example for me, and I think for these women in the book, is reinvention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I've had to reinvent myself to get myself to where I am now. But it's been a process. It's been an evolutionary process in that reinvention. It's not that I woke up this morning and decided I was going to be a businesswoman. You know, I got here through all the self-development,
It's a
the
journey,
learning, all
absolute
of that.
journey.
It's a journey. Great word. It's a journey, and that's the other thing I would add to that. So yeah, that's the success equation. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Claudia, for spending some time with us. I know you're a busy woman. It was an absolute delight. We will definitely have to meet up again and find out how things are going, perhaps delve a little more into some of your experiences that absolutely worthy of sharing.
And thanks for asking me to do this, Sylvia.
Oh.
I really appreciate the opportunity. And of course, we all love talking about ourselves, don't we? So there you go.
Take good care, Claudia.
All right, you too.
Lovely seeing you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.